everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour. Every week, photographers meet here to connect, inspire, and create. And if you'd like to join us live, you'll find the schedule for upcoming sessions on my website at lindanickell.com. Every week, the guest shares their photography tips and insight into their creative journeys, and they inspire us to look at a subject just a little differently. Tonight's guest is Tom Ingram. Tom is a nature and wildlife photographer based in Northern California. Through his travels, he has photographed tiny ghost glass frogs in Costa Rica to the mightiest of the big cats, the revered pumas in the mountains of Chile. Each photograph he makes and subsequently shares with his audience serves as a gentle reminder that we are the stewards of these natural habitats, and the wildlife that inhabits them depend on us to preserve and protect them. Wildlife takes center stage on his Instagram account, but if you'll take a peek at his website, you'll see that Tom's photography skill set includes landscapes, dark sky photography, and even some cityscapes. In tonight's presentation, Capturing the Emotional Connection in Wildlife Photography, Tom will share some practical tips and techniques for establishing that emotional connection between your wildlife subjects and the viewer. If you're on Instagram, you can find Tom at Tom Ingram Photography, and you can connect with him through his website, tomingramphotography.com. Welcome to the Happiness Hour, Tom.
Thank you very much, Linda. Let me go to my full screen here.
Yay, wait a minute. Everybody, stop rushing to share your screens. Talk to me for half a second. Okay. So, all right, Tom, it's kind of one of these full disclosures. I think that I found you through Instagram. Sometimes somebody will shoot me a note and say, hey, look at this person. But I think you came through my feed, and I don't know why or how, but I ended up spending a little bit of time stalking your page, and your photography is what I would like my wildlife photography portfolio to look like. I was very envious. And then it was really cool to like go deep into your feed and start recognizing, I'm like, wait a minute, he's in the Rio Grande Valley. And so those common subjects or familiar subjects to me are sitting in your feed. And that connected, that just resonated with me. And so I was like, I got to reach out to this guy. He's been to Texas. He's, unless we did something terrible to him, I bet I can get him to say hello, say yes to coming on. So thank you for not putting up a fight. And I am delighted that you're here. So thank you. I skimmed over a bio for you. Is there anything I missed? You want to?
Well, I think your introduction was wonderful. I mean, my passion for conservation is one of the reasons I do this. And so we hadn't talked before you did that intro, and that was perfect. So thank you very much.
Good. All right. Well, thank you. All right. With that, I'm gonna let you get started.
Okay.
See? You had a very good IT person. I'll just say that for the record.
My wife is sitting next to me, and we always joke because whenever the kids' iPhones break, they're always calling mom. So she's become our IT department. So I asked her to stay on and help me out. Well, thank you very much, Linda, for the introduction. I'm Tom Ingram. It's nice to meet everybody here. There's a few of you that I do follow as well, so I recognize some faces with the introduction. So thank you very much for that. I think Linda already mentioned my website. I say wildlife and nature photography. Most of my stuff is birds and mammals, but I am trying to get a little bit into, I'm always inspired to see other people's landscapes, so I do play around with that. I'm currently living in kind of the Santa Cruz area, just south of San Francisco, but was raised up in Sonoma County. If anybody's heard of Point Reyes, that was basically my backyard when I was growing up. And so I love it up here in Northern California, although I think I go to Texas for photography more than I actually spend in California. So I can see why you're recognizing those Texas subjects. Um, I don't know if you guys know David Euro. He's one of, I would say one of the top 10 international photographers. And his photography has always inspired me. And he has three key attributes to a winning photo. Um, and I see so photos should hold the viewer's attention for a long time. You should just look and not want to turn away from it. I know now in our social media feeds, everybody's just clicking through pictures. So what gets you to stop and actually really look at a picture? Photos should be one of a kind, and that's becoming harder and harder to accomplish. Because there's just so many great photographers out there, and there's only so many places that we can go. So trying to get something that's unique is something that we're always striving for. What we're going to talk about today, though, is his third point, and that's how, there should be something in an image that just tugs at your heart, that just grabs that emotion from you. And what attributes of a photo can accomplish that? And that's what I'm going to try to talk about. So, all of my pictures today, they're taken on an Nikon. I've been doing photography. I had the opportunity to live in India actually for 4 years, and that's where I really got into wildlife photography. And so it was right up in about 2007, right when digital photography was coming out. I really kind of dove full speed in about 2010. And so I've been doing photography for about 14 years, been Nikon the whole time, almost switched to Sony, but held off. And so I just had too much invested in my Nikon lenses. It always cracks me up with all the fights between what's better, Sony, Nikon, or Canon. It's like what's better, a Chevy or a Ford. All the camera systems are phenomenal. So really the first thing that I want to think about when we get into this conversation is, who are you taking the picture for? Who is your audience? And it could be all of the above, but are you looking to sell your photography? Is it for fine art? Are you looking to enter it into a photo contest? Is it for your own enjoyment? I know a lot of photographers that don't share their pictures, which is completely fine. They just love being out in nature. It gives them a reason to be in nature, and it's for their own enjoyment. And then there's the desire to be on social media, maybe to market your photos. But who is your audience? I think that's really, really important. Um, so one of the things that I realize, I keep my top 100 pictures. I'm on Flickr. If anybody's on Flickr, I love it because I can create my own albums. And I realized that some of the pictures that are really, they're emotional to me. It's because I was there when I took that picture. I lived through the experience. It might have been how hard I worked for that picture. Your audience isn't going to see that. So if you're taking the picture for your audience, what's going to grab their emotional attention? Because they're not going to have all that experience that you're going to have in your memory bank when you took that picture. So you need to create that experience for them. So as I go through this, as I set through some of these different presentations, we tend to have our points, we have our opinions and our thoughts. These are my thoughts. They're my suggestions. You don't have to agree with them. What I tell my kids when I tell them they need to build mentors, I say, you need to listen to everybody, but based on your own experience, you take all that experience and all that advice, and then you decide what advice you want to use. So these are just my views, my suggestions. You can take them and add them to your portfolio of knowledge. And if you don't like them, you don't agree with them, that's totally fine as well. One of the things I've realized as I've started going with different guides, originally I started going with just one or two guides, and I started to realize that all my pictures started looking like their portfolio because I was just learning from a couple people. So I've really forced myself now to really start going out, even though I do have my 3 or 4 favorite guides that I just I've got a great friendship with, and I love their demeanor. I love spending time with them. Really force yourself to go out and do photography with different people, whether you're going on an organized trip or you're just going out with somebody. If you're always going out with the same person, you're not going to really expand your knowledge. So I really encourage you to, mix it up a little bit. Um, and then, your photography is your art. It's yours. You decide um, how much Photoshop you want to do. Everybody has their opinion. And so I'm showing this picture of a gorilla that I took this year um, in Uganda. And typically I wouldn't have done this. I wouldn't have changed the whole background. You can see that there's a lot of Photoshop here. Obviously, I couldn't enter this into a competition. I've broken all of those rules. But it did have a really messy background. And the guide that I was with, this is how he likes to do his pictures. So he kind of in his workshop, he was showing us how to kind of dodge and burn, how to kind of make it a black and white with just a little bit of color in it. So, this isn't typically, I would say, Tom Ingram style, but I learned a lot. And so it's okay to do it that way. A lot of people would question, how much Photoshop it should look exactly like it does in the film. You make that decision yourself. Then, and you probably have all heard this, but learn the rules and then learn how to break them. So this obviously in wildlife, you want to get eye contact. You want to get an animal coming directly at you. You don't want to get the rear end as it's running away. But this is one of my favorite pictures. I just love the way the shadows was showing up on the snow. The fox is jumping. You get the full view of him jumping. You've got the cloudy skies, but it's a rear end shot, you know. I like it. I don't know if you do, but I do. So I'm breaking the rule on that one. Um, so we're going to talk about today are what are those, for me, the five things that I try to focus on. And I try to mentally think about this when I'm going out to do photography. And I repeat it every time as I'm driving to do it, because you're going to see I just did some trips recently and I didn't accomplish the getting low. I didn't accomplish the interaction that I should have. So you've got to constantly remind yourself. So the five things that I think you need to try to accomplish in getting that emotional connection with your audience is getting low, eye contact, interaction and behavior. I think the lighting and the background's really important. And knowing the environment, bringing the environment in. In Instagram, everybody's getting these highly cropped, beautiful portrait type of pictures, which I love to do myself. But sometimes it's nice to pull backwards and get the tree of Kenya in the savannah, so you can see with the clouds, you can really see the environment that the animal is living in. One of the things that you'll see, common throughout the pictures is, you know, in wildlife photography, you do need to really learn the behavior of the animals and understand, and anticipate. I did a little workshop and I was in New Jersey. I was at Great Swamps, and we were with an egret, and everybody wanted to see that egret catching something. And so everybody lined up at the egret, and I could see some frogs that were jumping over about 30 feet to the right. And so I didn't say anything. I just casually walked over to where the frogs were. And sure enough, the egret flew over to the frog, grabbed this huge frog out and fought it in the pond. And everybody was setting over where the egret was. You got to think about where's the food source? They're either breeding or they're eating, what's their behavior? And I think that's really important to anticipate that. The other thing that I try to do, especially if I'm going on a trip to Africa or if I'm going down to Patagonia, is I really do try to pre-visualize what are those 3 or 4 photos that you want to accomplish. I had the opportunity, and I'll share some of those pictures to go to Uganda and do chimpanzees and gorillas. You get 1 hour with them. and it's very hectic, it's very busy. And if you haven't thought through, okay, I want a silverback, I want a picture with a baby, I want to get a family, you haven't thought through that, you could use your whole hour in that silverback and miss everything else because you haven't thought about what are the shots that you want to get. Um, so um, First area is getting low. And I think that's probably the most important thing as I share some pictures. I've had recent back surgery. I actually went and had 3 discs in my neck replaced in my neck. Getting low can be painful. A lot of us are getting a little bit older and you can't, getting out there and just say, oh, get low. Well, that's easier said than done. So how do you get low? So as I go through my pictures, I'm going to give some examples. You can see here, put waders on, get in the water. If you're in Texas, where there's private land, it's easier. California, it's hard. It's a lot of public land. You can't just go and put waders on and get in the water. But if you're up in Alaska, you can, and get down, get dirty. Don't be afraid. You can wash your clothes when you get home. If you're out at a pond and you've got a bunch of, duck droppings all over there, who cares? Just get down, get dirty, and try to stay low. So this picture kind of broke my heart. So I did a dream trip this year to Patagonia and was photographing puma, and puma's moving really quick. I mean, they're hunting, so it was hard carrying your gear just to stay up with them, to stay in front of them. That you had to be in pretty good shape just to accomplish that. But the ground was like cactus. So it wasn't like you just wanted to jump down wherever you were and get really, really low. And so on this picture, I thought I was low, but I was a little bit lazy and I didn't get flat. And when I went back and looked at my pictures, I was really disappointed. Incredible picture. I mean, I've got eye contact, I've got it coming at me. But if you compare that and I just want to make sure, you guys seen my full screen? Okay. Um, this one, taken in Yellowstone, again, understanding the behavior of a hunting coyote, I was able to see it from a distance, and I was laying on one side of a bridge that was covered with snow, and I knew this coyote eventually was going to have to cross this bridge. So by knowing its behavior, knowing that it was hunting, I laid down. The snow was nice and soft, and just laid down low and waited for that coyote to come my way. With wildlife, the least movement you have, the better chance you have that you don't disturb it. But I'll let you decide between the two. Loved both pictures, but one of them I'd gotten lower. I was below the eye level, and I feel that has a little bit better of an emotional connection than the puma does with a little bit higher. And I'm not going to the next screen. This is why I have my IT person with me. So here again, I was in Alaska. I'm sorry, I was in Africa, and this was taken in Kenya. And as you know, if you've done African safaris, you've got to stay inside of in the vehicle, and so it's really hard to get low. This leopard came out of the tree really quickly, and so it was a downward shooting angle. Now, one thing that you can do if you can anticipate this is you can actually take your camera, put it on a monopod, drop it out the side of your window. Now with the flip up screen, you can look at it, and then use a remote control trigger to get it in focus. So that's a way to think about how could I have gotten a better shot at this. On the opposite side, here was an Arctic fox taken on the Dalton Highway up in Alaska. It was actually setting on the road. There wasn't much traffic, but we knew there would be trucks coming along. So we laid down flat on the snow again, waited for a truck to scare it our way. We were anticipating it coming our way. We got lucky, got the shots off, and had to roll off the road before the truck got us. But that was easier to get low. If you see the difference between the two, I think the Arctic fox has much more of a connection because of the low angle. Um, Here, this is a harlequin duck. A lot of you, New Jersey in the wintertime, it's really icy on the jetty. It's very dangerous if you ever go out there, but pretty hard to get low. And you can see I'm shooting down at an angle. If I compare that to a spectacle eider, this was taken up in Barrows, Alaska, where I put on my waders. I got into the little Arctic pond and I waited. And the key there was, making sure that you don't scare that you want the ducks to fly naturally. Otherwise they're going to fly away from you. So I honestly sat there for an hour and a half waiting for this duck to fly. But I was comfortable. I was in the water, 500 millimeter right over the top of the water. So I was able to get a low angle. Um, So here up in Northern California, we have long-tailed weasels. And, you know, I've got eye contact, but it's not looking at me. So here I was using a Bing bag. I had a 600 millimeter. They're very fast. They're jumping all over the place. So I had to move very quickly. It was a real challenge to get focused because sometimes it would just come up just a little bit above the flowers. But here, the direct eye contact, I feel, has a little bit more of emotional connection than the same animal just looking a little bit away from you. So, I'll let you decide, but I think both of them are good shots. This one was hysterical because it was like it was playing with me. There was all these gopher holes. It was just popping up all over the place. And it was like it was playing peekaboo with me. Literally one time it literally jumped up right between my legs, scared me half to death. And then all of a sudden it would be 20, 30 yards. It was just amazing how fast it was. But this took me probably 1,000 shots over 2 days. Again, I knew the shot that I wanted. I was trying to get some moving where they were jumping, but I really wanted this specific shot. So I just worked at it and worked at it and worked at it. So again, pre-visualizing what you want, I think is important. I wanted to be able to get the blur in the front, kind of in the flower bed. But again, that eye contact getting low. So here, it's a um, splendid leaf frog in Costa Rica. I was taking this with a 105 millimeter macro. I don't do a lot of macro, so it was a lot of fun. I've got eye contact, the eye's in focus, but which one do you think gives you the more emotional connection? So having the frog with both eyes kind of looking directly at you, I think again, that eye contact, that low kind of being at that parallel with the subject, I think kind of jumps at you and gives you a little bit more of a connection than the one on the right is a ghost glass frog, and the one on the left is a splendid leaf frog. I just love that direct eye contact. Even though in the movies they tell you never to look at the lens, right? Here again, I was up in Kaktovik, Alaska, and you know, a mother with two cubs. I mean, that's exciting. That's really exciting. We were in a boat, and it was probably minus 10 degrees outside. Everybody was inside the cabin, shooting out the window, trying to stay warm. I went outside by myself in the back of the boat so I could get as low as I possibly could. Here, they're not looking at you as much as this one. This was actually this is one of the same pair of cubs. The mother was nursing. This one had just finished nursing, went over and decided to play a little bit and clean off of its coat. But I really tried to get as low as I could in the boat. I'm probably 45 yards away with a 600 millimeter. This is it's cropped a little bit, but getting that eye contact, getting all four of the paws and getting that interaction and behavior, you know, it's kind of cute. I think the behavior and that interaction with the cub versus the two that are just walking, not giving you eye contact. I was thrilled with both pictures, but I think the cub gives you a little bit more of an emotional connection. So Rio Grande Valley, um, I believe this was, I'm not sure if this one was with Hector or with Alan, so which ranch I was at, to be honest, Linda. But the golden fronted woodpecker, beautiful background on a nice perch, good eye contact. It's a great perch picture, but compare that with the interaction. And here they're not looking at the camera, but they're looking at each other. And I think that gives that same kind of an emotional connection that, with them fluttering, with that interaction, with that behavior, that just, this is honestly one of my personal favorite pictures, just getting that interaction, that behavior. Background, it actually isn't as clean as the one that's on the left, but I love the fact that they're actually looking at each other. So I mentioned I had the opportunity to go photograph chimpanzees in Uganda, and I tell you, if you have something on your bucket list, the gorillas, they took 11 hours to get to the first day, so it was rewarding getting to them. But when you realize that I think they're 97 point or 95.7, or the DNA is very close to us. And when you're with them, I mean, you're almost in tears because you really do feel like they're one of us. And so just getting to sit there and watch them play was just incredible. Now, here we were with a group of 5 people. Once you come in contact with the chimpanzees and the gorillas, you're given 1 hour, and that hour goes quickly. A lot of times they're in heavy brush, they're moving around. Everybody is, in your group is kind of shuffling for position. What I did is I stepped back away from everybody and just kind of slowed down and looked at what was happening. And I looked off to the right, and there was this female that's actually getting groomed. So you don't see in this picture on the right is there's a male grooming her, and she's just kind of relaxing. And it's like, what is she thinking about? Is she dreaming? She just has such a relaxed look on her face. And that just draws me into her. So, the key is to really step back and be in the moment and be present and really kind of observe what you're doing, and not just, you kind of really have to slow down when the action is happening so quickly. So now talking a little bit about lighting and background. So here is a female green wing-tail in San Francisco Bay, kind of taken in midday light. It was an overcast day. You got a little bit of shadow on it, but it wasn't too bad, but it's kind of drab, you know. You've got the behavior. Everybody wants the nice crisp birds in flight, but it doesn't have great lighting. If you compare that, here is a gadwall duck that was taken up in the Sacramento National Wildlife Refuge. This was right at sunset. This was one that I really did, just got down in all of the muck. I was using a Bing bag, 600 millimeter, and capturing that golden light where I was able to kind of blend in the background with the water. And that's kind of a challenge if I go back to getting low. Sometimes you have to make sure that you don't dissect the subject from the water to the background. It's something you should be really aware of. So sometimes you actually do want to rise up a little bit. Like if you're taking pictures of rushing grebe, you don't want the background to get dissected. But if you're aware of that, you can kind of get the background to get blurred out and kind of blend together. So here we've got a duck that's not really doing anything. It's just kind of wading through the water. But I think that light, that beautiful, soft, golden light, kind of gives you a little bit of an emotional connection Then here you've got versus the active flying duck that's kind of in midday light. So here again, talking about lighting, this is a couch kingbird taking down the Santa Clara Ranch. Um, it's got the behavior, it's got the eye contact, it's a great subject, but the background is clean, but it's pretty boring. It's pretty dab. Where this one here, you've got more of the behavior. It's looking. You've got better eye contact, but you've got that soft light. You can tell that one was taken probably at about 3 in the afternoon, and the other one's taken much later in the evening, right around, just as light was starting to get a little bit darker. And I think that lighting is really, really important in how it gives you that emotional fill. So, as I mentioned, point rays, when I was growing up, nobody had ever heard of point rays. Now, when I show up, unfortunately, there's a lot more people out there for the bobcats than what there used to be. And it's one of my favorite things to go out and photograph, honestly. And so here you've got a bobcat, good eye contact, nice focus, not too busy of a background. I'm a little bit too high. I'm not low enough. But you can tell it's in the evening, but the light just hasn't gotten soft yet. If you compare that to this one where this has actually got it's front lit, so I've got a little bit of ring lighting on it. The light's a little bit softer. You've got the animal literally running at you, which kind of sends the message that you haven't disturbed the animal, right? The animal's behaving in its natural behavior, which I think it's really important. It's got a gopher in its mouth and it's looking right at you. So it's kind of bringing in a lot of the different attributes. And in this one here, I was actually shooting with a 500 millimeter PF, which I love that lens because I can hand hold it. I can move around. I can get down quickly. I'm not worried about a tripod. So once I saw it grab the gopher, I was able to just jump down in the grass, flat on my belly, and shoot away at it. But again, both I was very happy with both pictures, but I think the one on the right to me just has that more of that emotional feel to it. So up in Homer, Alaska, photographing bald eagles. So here's a sharp bald eagle that's showing you great wing action, great behavior, but it's just a blue sky in its background. So it's a great picture. Definitely would put it up on Instagram. But I don't know if it really grabs you. And I think if I had this on my Instagram account, I probably would get a like and you'd be on 10 seconds to the next picture. Where the next picture, I would hopefully that you would stop and say, okay, as I mentioned with Dave Euro, hopefully this one gets you to look and spend a little bit more time with it. I was actually had my feet in the water in the back of a boat. I was using a 35 millimeter. So, it was hard because, not very many eagles were coming in, that close. But just sat there, was patient. We had kind of an idea where the eagles were fishing. Um, Now with the flip up screens, where I actually took the camera and I was holding it right on the water, but I could focus it, fire away at 20 frames per second, and make sure I had the vertical horizontal straight and had a wide angle lens. And so, this is talking more about the environment, the behavior, and kind of bringing all of those characteristics together. So up in Nome, Alaska, this was my first time seeing a muskox, kind of just an incredible, incredible animal. It was taken in the springtime, you know, um, nice grassy field. It's in its environment, but not quite the same. as the one that I took on the Dalton Highway. This was taken in October. Um, this was actually, believe it or not, because it was so cold, this is a long exposure. I think this is like a 2 second exposure picture, because it was already dark out. Um, and they don't move. So they're moving about as quick as the stars when you're doing astrophotography. But seeing it frozen, seeing the frozen tundra, again, you can see they're both looking the same way. I am lower than the one that I took it on the right, so I think that helps. But you can see the difference in the environment. I kind of feel that the one in the snow kind of grabs me a little bit more emotionally than the one that's just setting out in the grass. So then bringing that all together, you know, this was, if any of you guys have heard about 399 in the Grand Tetons, this was taken the second day after she had come out of hibernation, and everybody was shocked to see that she had four cubs. This was during COVID. I was I was not going to just sit and be at home during COVID. So I had headed up to the Tetons. Everything was closed because of COVID, but we were allowed to be up there. And this was, it was kind of funny because as I drove, it was a 13-hour drive to get there, and it was snowing. And as I was driving, it was a bear jam, and I saw everybody was high-fiving themselves and everybody was walking away. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've missed the picture. And she was walking down this road and she was probably 200 yards away. And I just, I'd missed the pictures that everybody had gotten and everybody was excited about. So I literally just jumped down in a puddle of water, flat on my stomach. There was somebody sitting next to me who I've now found out who it was because we both have similar pictures. She wanted to cross the road, but with all the activity, the Rangers were hazing her off the road because they didn't want her to get hit by a car. So as everybody left, she turned around and she started walking back. And now the Rangers were gone, the people were gone, and two of us were sitting in this snowstorm in this mud puddle. And here she came. The challenge that I had with this was with autofocus. I was just clicking away and I got home and most of my pictures were out of focus because they were focusing on the snowflakes. You could see it was snowing really hard. And so at the last minute, I realized what was happening. So I went to manual and started manually focusing, which was key. Otherwise, I don't think I would have gotten a shot because probably, honestly, 400 shots that I was clicking away as it was coming were all out of focus. And so that's again, I slowed down, took a deep breath, and I thought about it. I'm like, wait, I can manually do this. I don't have to use autofocus. And I got lucky and got a couple of them in focus right as all four of the cubs, moved so I could have eye contact with all of them. So I'm in the environment. We've got interaction. We're low. It's very soft lighting. It's bringing all of those characteristics together. So with that, Linda, I would love to open it up for questions.
Right. Wow. That was a fantastic presentation. Okay, let me get you to take your screen down. Question. If you're going with a guy that's able to get you some rare birds, what's that rare bird that's on your list?
Um,
What are you after?
the rarest bird that I've gotten was a rustic bunting.
Oh, okay.
And if you've seen the movie The Big Year, that
Mhm.
was one that they were going out to the very end of the Aleutian Islands to capture. So that's probably the rarest of the birds that I've gotten. Which one do I want to get?
That's what I'm curious is what are you after?
Yeah, honestly, I just got it
Oh,
last year, and it was a boreal owl.
oh,
I thought I
okay.
was going to have to go up to Minnesota. I know we have somebody on the call from Minnesota.
Minnesota. Mhm.
But it actually was in Yellowstone, and they're there, but they're tiny. They're a little bit bigger than or a little bit smaller than a northern pygmy owl. So they're not easy to spot. So that I got last year, and that was way high on my list.
Well, y'all spend a second going through his website and looking through his galleries, because he's gotten a lot of really cool shots of some animals that I didn't even know what they were. So I first of all, I love the way you did your presentation. It's like, hey, this is what you can get, but this is what you look at doing or trying to get something better. And I really like that compare and contrast, because I think that it really illustrates the difference, and it's gaping. So thank you, Tom, for putting this together. Thank you for coming and talking to a room full of strangers. I don't see any questions, which is kind of unusual, but a whole heck of a lot of really nice compliments. And everyone is saying it's a great presentation. I'll be sure to share the chat with you. With that, I want to thank you. And gosh, if you ever want to put together another presentation for me, let's circle back, because I'd love to have you back.
Thank you very much, Linda. And thank
Uh,
you all for coming.
yeah, this is great. All right. Next week, Donna McClin will be here to share her presentation, Life on the Ledge. Until next time, go out and create something beautiful. And I hope that we see you again soon.